what those mean and how to break them down. So when we're looking at these, the different parts of the radical, the number outside the radical is called the index. Okay, a lot of times if we're just looking at square roots, we may not see one of those. If there is no index written, we assume that it is 2. So if there's no little number there, it's assumed to be a 2. The number under the radical is called the radicand. It's the thing we're taking the square root of. And that symbol is, when I say radical, I'm talking about that square root symbol. So that's some of the terminology that we're going to use today. In general, when we see that symbol, we're assuming the positive root. So when I say the square root of 4, okay, we know 2 squared is 4, and negative 2 squared is also 4, but the square root is always referring to the positive one. Okay, so it's just referring to positive 2. In order to do these problems, it is helpful to have a list of perfect squares. And we can do this at any point. We just have to think through it. So what is 1 squared?
1.
What is 2 squared?
4.
4. 3 squared?
9. No.
4 squared means 4 times 4.
60.
5 squared? 6 squared? 7 squared? 8 squared? 9 squared? 10 squared? 11 squared? And let's do one more. 12 squared? 144. Okay, so if you are breaking down radicals, it could be useful to you just to kind of make this list on the margin of your paper. We are going to be looking for perfect squares when we go through here. So we're going to start with perfect squares, so ones that we can evaluate and that square root symbol goes away. You can do a square root on your calculator. So if you have one of mine, if you hit second and the x squared button, that brings up a square root. Now if you put in something that's not a perfect square, it's going to give you a decimal. But if I type in, you know, a nice square, so what's the first one we have? The square root of 81? Yeah, and we should know that one anyway. So it will give you that square root. So square root of 81 is 9. Do we know the square root of 484? Is it on our list? No, but if you check on your calculator, type it in, what does it tell you? 22. What's the square root of 64?
8.
Is there something wrong with that one, Cooper?
Just don't want that someone wrote all over it, so I'm distracted a little bit.
What?
This one like you all over.
Okay. 18 square root of 4.
36.
Okay, how'd you get it?
You type in the 18 and then
You can type the whole thing in your calculator, can't you? It's what it's saying is just 18 times the square root of 4. What is the square root of 4? 2. So it just means 18 times 2, which is where the 36 comes in. So if it says 2 radical 256, it means 3 radical 256. So 3 times. What is the square root of 256?
48.
That's
So the square root of 256 is 16 times 3 gave us 48. Alright, why don't you guys see if you can finish the last few for me. So do 6 through 9. What is negative 5 radical 121? What is the square root of 1 over 16? What's the square root of 9 over 100? The square root of 25 over 49. Okay, so those are all good, right? You either can look at it and tell, or you can put them in the calculator. But if they're not perfect squares, we need another option. The calculator is going to give you a decimal, but in many instances, you're going to be asked to find the exact answer in radical form. We don't want a decimal for our answer. So we have to learn how to rewrite that radical and reduce it as much as possible. So there's a series of steps that we need to go through. First, we're going to try to find the largest perfect square that would divide the radicand. So the number under the radical, the biggest perfect square that goes into it. What do I mean when I say perfect square? Yeah, something's going to come out even. So like those numbers on our list. 4, 9, 16, 25, 36. So we're looking for the biggest one that would divide it. And then we're going to take the square root of that. That's the number that comes outside of our radicand. And the leftover stays under the radical. So if I said the square root of 24, type that in your calculator for me. Just like any other. So yours is the same if you hit second and the square up. Oh.
No, even.
So second. Okay, we don't get a nice answer, dude. 4.89. Okay, so let's think. Can 24 be divided by any of our perfect squares?
8.
Is 8 on my perfect square list though? 4. No, but 4 is. Okay. So, would you guys agree 24 is the same thing as 4 times 6? Okay. What is the square root of 4? Once you take that square root, it comes out. Can I do the square root of 6? It's not a perfect square, so that stays. Now do me a favor, type 2 square root of 6 on your calculator. Do you get the same decimal as the first time?
Yep.
Yes, so you can double check yourself. But this is our reduced radical. We know we're done because 6 cannot be divided by any perfect squares.
What's the point of that?
So when you put it in your calculator and it gives you a decimal, you have to round that decimal to write down the answer. If you are solving a multi-step problem, every step where you've rounded, your answer gets a little bit further away from the real answer. So if you had to take that number and then do something else with it, your final answer would be off. So we want to keep it as accurate as possible. All right, let's look at the next one. The square root of 48. Okay, so I'm wanting to rewrite it, because if you type it in, does it work out perfectly? No. Okay, we need to know what perfect squares can divide 48. And there's a couple of them, actually. 16. What's another perfect square? 4 and 1. You want to go with the biggest one you can. Okay, so we can rewrite 48 as 16 times what number? 3, because you're dividing. 48 divided by 16 is 3. Alright, does everyone see where I got my 16 and my 3?
Not the 16.
Oh, wait,
Okay.
yeah.
So we were kind of going through our list of perfect squares. Okay, so 48, it's obviously has to be something smaller. Can you do 48 divided by 36? Can you do 48 divided by 25? Can you do 48 divided by 16?
So you have to be able to divide it and it comes out.
Yes, we want something that comes out even.
Okay.
Alright, what is the square root of 16? 4. And then can we do the square root of 3? No. yourself, do you get the same decimal when you do 4 square root of 3 as you did when you did square root of 48?
So then, where do we get the 3 from again?
48 divided by 60. Okay. Now, what would have happened? Let's do a what if for a second. Because you guys said it was also divisible by 4, right? What's 48 divided by 4? 12. Okay. So, square root of 4 is 2. We still have a square root of 12. So now ask yourself questions. Do any perfect squares divide 12? Yeah. What divides it? 4. So I would have to break down that square root of 12. So 12 is 4 times 3. Square root of 4 is 2 times the 2 that was already out there. And you would get 4 square root of 3. Is that the same thing we got when we did the 16? Yes. So if you don't pick the biggest perfect square, it just means you're going to have to do it again. It makes your problem a little bit longer, but you haven't done anything wrong. Okay, it's just going to take another step to get there. All right, 72. So it's not a perfect square. Go to my list. Okay, it's got to be something smaller than 72. Can you do 72 divided by 64? No. 49? 36. What's 72 divided by 36? What is the square root of 36? 6. And can we do the square root of 2? No. Okay. I want you guys to take a couple minutes and try the next few. So just word problems, and when I look at 63, I'm going to my list of perfect squares, looking for something that divides it evenly. So what is one of my perfect squares that would work? 9. So we know 63 divided by 9 is 7. All right. What is the square root of 9? 3. So that comes out of the radical. Can you do the square root of 7? No. So that stays. All right, everybody make sure you're paying attention because we're about 50-50. About half of you got these and about half of you didn't. So let's make sure we stay with you. 90, how would we break that up? Okay. Can we do the square root of 10? No, so that just stays. What is the square root of 9? 3. So we usually just put that number in front. Regardless of which order you had them, we know multiplication, we can flip it around. So we just put the 3 in front. 175. Okay. You could do 25 times 7. What is the square root of 25? 5. Can we do the square root of 7? Okay, what questions do we have on those 3? Let's go to the next page. We're going to do a few more. So everybody with me here. So 162. We need to go back to our perfect squares. It's got to be something smaller than 162. Can you do 162 divided by 144? No. 121?
88, 81.
81. Okay. What is 162 divided by 81?
2.
What is the square root of 81?
9.
So once you do the square root, the symbol goes away. Can we do the square root of 2? No, so it just stays. 9 square root of 2. How can you double check yourself at any time? Type it in. Compare your decimals for the original and your answer. Okay, 245. So start dividing. Tell me when you find something.
49.
What did you say?
49.
And what?
5.
49 is,
So,
and we still have a square root of 5. All right, one last problem for today. Everybody try it.
$49.
49 again. And what?
So,
So the square root of 49 is 7, and we can't do the square root of 7. So that is our answer. All right. We're going to stop here for today. I have a handout, but you are not going to do all of it. So on this handout, you are going to do questions 1 through 6 and 13 through 24.